day 45 falls roughly on April 7th or April 15th. Those dates are important because remember, that's when the United States was earnestly seeking a ceasefire with Iran. It was because of the oil shortage. Now, the U.S. took some proactive steps starting on March 11th to withdraw from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Again, the SPR is not one big tank. It's a pretty complicated system.
Today is July 13th, a very important day in the developments that are taking place in the Western Asia sector, where Iran and the United States are locked in battle. Implications are for all the world because the Strait of Hormuz is effectively closed. I have with me my very dear friend and colleague with many years of experience with the CIA, very knowledgeable about all these issues. And his name is Larry Johnson. You have heard from him. You like him. And he is a founding member of Transition Protocol. This is a channel in which you are invited to listen to directly sourced information from those corners of the world that impact you. So, Larry, please go ahead.
Hi there, Z. Yeah, look, I know we were hopeful, say, more than a week ago that perhaps there was, let's call it some hope that negotiations would resume, that the United States would live up to and abide by the MOU. Clearly, the MOU is dead, in my view. The ceasefire, dead. Not going to be revised anytime soon. The United States, foolishly, has decided to embark on a policy of confrontation with Iran. Frankly, it's a confrontation that it cannot win. It cannot. It's premised on the assumption it can coerce Iran into surrendering and coming back to the negotiating table. Although Donald Trump loudly proclaims that Iran's begging for talks, the fact of the matter is, as we review the events since February 28th, as was the case back in the 12-day war in June of 2025, it is the United States that ends up pressuring other countries to seek to put pressure on Iran to come to talks, to find a negotiated settlement. I think, the old expression in the United States, often misquoted, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. So, if you try to cheat me or scan me, the first time it happens, it's on you. How dare you do that? But now that I know that you're a scamster, you're a liar, you're a prevaricator, you're a fraud, then if I sit down with you again and reach any kind of agreement and trust you, that's on me. And so from now on, it's on Iran. Iran should have no doubt whatsoever that the United States is not to be trusted, that the United States does not live up to a single damn agreement. And we can take what has unfolded as we've seen over the last week and a half. So the U.S. narrative is that, well, Iran attacked these ships that were trying to sail through the Strait of Hormuz in the Omani Channel, and that was just outrageous. That shouldn't have been allowed. Well, excuse me, but under the language that was contained in the memorandum of agreement or of understanding between the United States and Iran that was signed by Donald Trump and by President Pezeshkian of Iran, paragraph 5 stipulated that Iran, and only Iran, we've seen, I know, Z, you and I have seen some writings by people like the Institute for the Study of War who tried to insist that this was supposed to be a joint Iranian-Omani decision and that that under no circumstances was Iran having permission to interfere with the passage of any ship wanting to go through the strait. all complete fabrications, lies. The MOU was quite clear. The only country with the responsibility for ensuring the safe passage of ships is Iran. No other. No other Gulf country, no other country in the world. Only Iran. And Iran, because that had been one of the elements that Iran had submitted initially. That was an Iranian demand. And Iran, in tandem with that, developed what are called the Persian Gulf Strait Authority Protocols. The protocols stipulate that any ship wanting to transit the Strait of Hormuz, whether through the Iranian channel or the Omani channel, must submit paperwork or an application online to the PGSA, which will be reviewed by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, and that you provide the name of the ship, the name of the captain, who owns the ship, what's the port, what's the destination of the ship, what cargo is the ship carrying, and what are the nationalities of the crew. All of this is for the express purpose of imposing a blockade on Israel, that no ship headed to Israel, no ship owned by Israel, no ship owned by anybody with a connection to Israel is going to be allowed through the Strait of Hormuz. That is Iran's retaliation against Israel. So Iran is playing hardball on that and has insisted. There have been several instances over the last week and a half where the United States deliberately encouraged ships, one from Qatar, one from Saudi Arabia, one from Cyprus is one of the latest ones. Go ahead, go through the Omani Straits, tell Iran to fuck off. You don't have to fill out any paperwork. And then when Iran retaliated, because it was included in the protocols, that any ship that did not comply would be met with force. Iran meant what it said. We met them with force, and then in response to that, the United States used that as an excuse to launch attacks on Iran along the Strait of Hormuz. The problem with these attacks is they've not done really any significant damage to Iran, but is a clear violation of Iran's sovereignty. Iran, in return, has been I'll call it gradual escalation, that in response to each U.S. attack, Iran has hit more and more targets and hit those targets with more and more force. In the latest exchange, and I must admit I was wrong, or at least I was hoping that in what has happened in 5 previous incidents going back to April 7th, that after this initial spate of violence, the U.S. would back off. Trump would make some remarks about, talks are back on, or the Iranians are seeking talks imminently, so we're going to that imply that the negotiations would be back on track. I was hopeful that would happen even as late as this morning. It didn't. So what that means is now the United States is locked on a path of continued escalation with Iran, and Iran is in a position to escalate better than the United States because starting on June 17th, the U.S. began withdrawing military assets from the region. What the United States would now have to do to re-engage this is to issue new orders, bring these assets back into theater, which is going to take a few days. But it also creates a tremendous economic problem that very, very few people in the world are talking about. And here on Transition Protocol, we're one of the few to point it out. And it's the difference between sweet crude and sour crude. Sour crude globally is what is used to make diesel and aviation fuel. It's not to say that you cannot make diesel and aviation fuel from sweet crude. You can, but that depends upon the refinery, how the refineries are set up physically. An oil refinery is not all oil refineries are not created or built equally. They are built to handle specific types of oil, and I'm generalizing. They're built to either handle the sweet crude, they're built to handle the heavy crude. In the United States, you've got this contradiction. The United States produces an enormous amount of sweet oil. But 70% of the U.S. oil refineries are designed to handle the sour oil, the sour crude. As a result, the U.S. gladly exports sweet oil to Europe and other places where they do have refineries that can handle that. But when it comes to producing diesel and aviation fuel for the U.S. market, as well as globally, you got to have the sour crude. When the Strait of Hormuz was first shut down on the 28th of February, that shut down about 20 to 25% of the world's supply of sour crude. The United States, up to that point, in addition to relying on the Persian Gulf for about 10% of its total imports, it also received the heavy crude, the sour crude, from Canada, from Mexico, and from Venezuela. But the point is, neither Canada, Mexico, and Venezuela combined could not make up for the shortfall of what was supposed to come from the Persian Gulf. Now, the reason the oil shortage didn't hit immediately on the 28th of February is that there were still tankers on the high sea. They were full of oil. They had to finish their trip to the United States. That trip took between 35 and 45 days. Well, lo and behold, day 45 falls roughly on April 7th or April 15th. Those dates are important because remember, that's when the United States was earnestly seeking a ceasefire with Iran. It was because of the oil shortage. Now, the U.S. took some proactive steps starting on March 11th to withdraw from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Again, the SPR is not one big tank. It's a pretty complicated system. Let's just say that even though you can fill it with 100 barrels of oil, you can only draw it down to about where there's only 20 barrels left, because if you draw it below that 20, because this oil is stored in salt caverns, those salt caverns would dissolve because you have to inject water to get the oil out of the storage facility. So, although on paper the United States looks like it's got an excess of 140 million barrels, it doesn't. Those 140 million barrels have to stay in there. And what the United States has been withdrawing at a rate of 1.4 million barrels per day since March 11th has basically brought us now to mid-July, where the supply that the U.S. can draw upon for sour crude is virtually exhausted. Now, but it's at this time that the United States has sought this escalation. And note the lies that are coming out of the Pentagon and out of the White House. They claim that the Strait of Hormuz is open. It is not. All you need to do is you go to a site called marinetraffic.com, or you can alternatively go to vesselfinder.com. Now, what's really interesting, throughout this period I've been monitoring over the last 4 days, there are two, let's call them yachts, pleasure craft, sailing back and forth between Kemsh Island and Kasab in Oman. And one of them is called the Jersey Devil. It's a U.S. flagged ship. The other one is called God, G-O-D. Both of them are American ships. I guarantee you these are not pleasure craft out just to enjoy the beauty of the Persian Gulf. These are, I believe, collecting intelligence, and they're intelligence ships. I wouldn't be surprised to see them at some point in the next day or two come under fire or be taken captive by Iran, because they are clearly not engaged in normal, regular recreational activity. So right now, Iran has stepped up its strikes. In the first day of the retaliation to U.S. strikes, it hit Kuwait and Bahrain, fired some missiles in the direction of U.S. ships that are sitting 200 miles offshore. In the succeeding days, though, Iran has expanded those attacks. They're still taking out sites in Bahrain and in Kuwait. But in addition, they have hit El Al Udeid Air Force Base in Qatar, which was being used to stage flights against Iran. It has hit the Air Force bases in Jordan, too, the Prince Hassan base and the Muwafiq al-Salti base, destroying command and control centers, drone storage, going after aircraft storage as well. So inflicting significant damage on radar systems. They've targeted as well the facility in Oman that has been used by U.S. aircraft carriers for resupply, refitting, refueling. So that is, they've attacked there. Reports mixed. It's not quite clear if they've gone after the UAE or not. The one country that has not yet been attacked is Saudi Arabia. But that brings us to the latest development. Overnight, the Saudis bombed locations in Yemen. It is now basically Yemen has declared war on Saudi Arabia for all practical purposes. So in the future, what we can anticipate is the launch of ballistic missiles from Yemen to Yanbu, the port, the western port that Saudi Arabia has been using to get oil, some oil, several million barrels a day out of the Persian Gulf. That site, I think, will be rendered inoperative probably by the week's end, as well as the Houthis may make good on their threat, a threat that was made actually initially by Iran, that's saying if the U.S. renewed these attacks, they would close Bab el-Mandab Strait with using the Houthis as a proxy. But then they also made one other, let's call it promise or threat, depending on how you look at it. They said, what we're going to do is we're going to withdraw from the Non-Proliferation Treaty. That means that Iran would be on the path to deploying or developing a nuclear device. I know there are many out there that believe Iran already has one in its possession, but it's been shelved, not to be used under the fatwa issued by the late Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. The current Ayatollah, Mujtaba Khamenei, son of Ali, is believed by many to be in a mindset to remove that fatwa, to authorize the development of a nuclear weapon, not so much to use offensively, but in the same way that North Korea has. Once you have a nuke, you become immune to these kinds of military attacks by the West. They don't want to provoke a nuclear war. We can see that there was clearly sentiment inside Iran in this regard. The funeral processions in Tehran, Qom, and Mashhad in Iran were filled with chants of revenge. The red flag within Shiism stands for revenge. So this is not one, they have not forgiven and forgotten. They remember and they seek revenge against the United States. So what we're going to look at now is the U.S. announced today the reinstitution of the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. Now, I think that has more, there's more of a verbal threat than an actual threat, because the United States still has limited naval power that it could bring to such a task. Nonetheless, I think in the coming days we will see them interdict some Iranian ships, and in anticipation of that, I think Iran is going to be moving more aggressively to respond to that blockade. In the past, Iran was being counseled by Pakistan, by China, to hold back, to be patient, that there were diplomatic moves afoot to try to get the United States to acknowledge Iran's legitimate demand. I think that day now has come and gone. I think Iran has realized that it's made one conciliatory move after another to be rebuffed now on every front, and that the United States, even though Iran has complied with the MOU, as has Hezbollah up to this point has not gone back on the offensive. I think over the coming week we may very well see Hezbollah the ban on its withholding of attacks in accordance with Iran's promises to uphold the MOU. I think they'll recognize the MOU is dead. They'll be back on the attack. Israel will be back on its back foot, and these attacks on Iran are not going to stop. It is currently closing in on 11 p.m. In Iran, and I anticipate that we'll start seeing a renewal of attacks on Iranian targets this afternoon. Hope I'm wrong. That's it, Z.
That's a lot. It is a lot, and it is information that comes directly from our sources, firsthand, not varnished by corporate interest or any other interest. So, those of you who are watching us, if you like what we're doing, please subscribe. Please hit the like button, and also for your information, we have started a paid subscription at the lowest possible rate allowed by Substack, which is $5 a month. You will get security briefing of this quality delivered to you. Well, I have.
Well, actually, Z, if they subscribe for $50 a year, that actually makes it cheaper.
It will make it cheaper, and you will get this direct reporting from direct sources, not compromised by corporate interest or political interest, delivered to you by people who have the quality of experience that Pepe Escobar and Larry Johnson, our colleagues, founding members of this channel, bring to you. I have some additional information that I would like to relate to our audiences and also for your comment. And this came just about an hour before we went on the air. And this is that the mood inside Iran is defiant. They are prepared for war. They are prepared for revenge. They are prepared for the United States to actually send ground troops. They welcome ground troops inside of Iran so that the United States will learn the true cost of the war, which would be devastating and obviously not welcomed by anybody who doesn't want to see innocent people being killed. But Iran is in that mindset. At the same time, I'm informed that Iran is very sane, is very rational. Even the office of the supreme leader has given a green signal to the leadership to engage in serious talks. And that would include Galibaf, Pezeshkian, and Arakshi. And they're speaking with their counterparts in Pakistan, that would be Field Marshal Munir, Prime Minister Sharif, and Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar. And also speaking very interestingly and very aggressively recently with with President Erdogan. In fact, Erdogan channel is so important that Field Marshal Munir has in fact left Islamabad to travel to Turkey to meet with Erdogan, and they are also speaking with the Emir of Qatar. There is a funeral underway for the former Emir, the father of the present Emir, and Ishaq Dar, foreign minister, is there. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif is there. So they are having talks with the Emir of Qatar. They're also having talks with Saudi Arabia, even though Saudi Arabia has this problem that you just identified. So Iran is a rational actor from everything that we see. Everything that we see shows that Iran is a rational actor. Iran is prepared for war and is very well equipped for war. I think I need to emphasize that. Very well equipped for war. And is actually not going to shy away from a fight if Trump is so stupid to do that. But Trump, in everybody's estimation, has a very short runway. He cannot plunge the entire world economy into a disaster, not a recession, a disaster. So, what do you make of all that, Larry?
Yeah, well, the decisions of the United States right now, you have to look at it. I think it's important for people to understand there is a military bureaucracy that undergirds all of this activity. And so, one of the reasons I felt comfortable on February 26th, February 27th, saying that the United States was going to go to war with Iran is because I knew that what were called crisis action teams, CATs, had been set up and operating for at least 5 days in the previous 5 days at that time. Now, I spent 23 years scripting exercises for the Special Operation Forces, so I know sort of, if you will, all the paperwork that has to take place behind the scenes before an operation is launched, even in a crisis situation. That doesn't disappear. So, what we've seen since June 17th was the dismantling of this, if you will, this bureaucratic system for monitoring 24-hour combat operations. In other words, to carry out major combat operations, you need to have these crisis action teams up and running at the Pentagon, at the Central Command Headquarters, at Joint Special Operations Command Headquarters, at subservient, at other supporting commands. And those, to my knowledge, what I was told, were turned off about 3 weeks ago now. And when I say turned off, they were actually, it's been 4 weeks. So they went back to 5 day a week, 8 to 5. Now it's this, in the past few days, there's some real confusion whether those are being reignited or because there have been contradictory orders issued. Some people are supposed to return home, and then they're being told, no, stay, no, return home. Others are being told to stay, no, return home, no, stay. So lots of confusion. And that confusion on the part of the United States doesn't make it in a better position to conduct any kind of coherent military operations. Iran, by contrast, has been, with the support of Russia and China, is getting intelligence support. They know what targets to hit. They know where the vulnerabilities are. They know what where to try to weaken the United States' potential for future military operations. And when I come back to the sour crude, sweet crude that we talked about, there's not an unlimited supply of aviation fuel. So if the United States starts stepping up its military operations in the Persian Gulf, that's going to drain off aviation fuel that normally would be available to the civilian sector. Now it's dedicated exclusively to the military sector. Civilian side's going to suffer. And so all of a sudden, when you have a cutback in civilian air travel, you've got a problem. Similarly, if they say, oh, we've got to now produce more aviation fuel because of the shortage, well, that means you're taking fuel that would normally go to diesel, shifting it to the aviation side. So in other words, this gets very complex on an economic side. And that's why I think, I know that Pakistan believes Trump's ultimately going to come back, begging to get back to the table, begging to get the talks restarted. That could be as soon as towards the end of this week. He'll do it. If he does it, he'll do it at a time that is going to help, boost the stock market. As I think I mentioned, the stock market is taking a bit of a beating today, as well as the oil market. Chip makers drop. There's a lot of the secondary effects from the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz are being felt throughout the economy, and the oil market is going back up and will continue, I think, to climb until such time as there's a belief that the oil is now going to flow back out of the Strait of Hormuz. But that's not going to come from the Iran seeking a deal. That's going to come from the United States, essentially crying uncle and saying, okay, let us get out of this trap.
Well, my reporting, which is about an hour before we started recording this, is that Field Marshal Munir, traveling to Turkey, is on the express request of interested parties who are decision makers. including President Erdogan, that between themselves and Qataris, who are being consulted with by the visit of Shahbaz Sharif, Prime Minister, and in consultation with Iranian leadership as well as Saudi Arabia. Even though there is this conflict going on with Yemen, that they are going to present to Trump uh, something that would be like an ultimatum. That here is the deal, and the deal starts with what was previously agreed. It is not to be renegotiated at all, not at all. They are that defiant. Iranians are that defiant. And if you do not wish to plunge the global economy into a depression, forget about a recession, into a depression, then you are welcome to come attack us. We are ready for you.
Yeah. Well,
That is their
look.
position.
Yeah, look. It was Trump 4 hours ago. I just looked it up to be sure. He declared the Strait of Hormuz is open and will remain open with or without Iran. I mean, the man's got his head up his ass. It's not true. He says, we're reinstating the Iranian blockade because we're only going to stop Iran ships or customers from entering or leaving. All other countries will have fair, open use of the strait. But the United States is now going to charge, they claim, a toll, 20% to reimburse us for our costs. All this is going to do is make sure that the Strait of Hormuz, it will operate under Iran's control. Ships that are linked to Iran will come out, and if the U.S. tries to interfere with them, they're going to simply shut down global trading, which is going to sabotage and tank the U.S. economy.
How can Trump do this? How
He's
can he be that
he
stupid?
he is that stupid. He's not mentally. He's not well. Robert Barnes has pointed out that uh, Trump is exhibiting the signs of prefrontal lobe dementia. I believe that's entirely true. Uh, Trump Trump believes his own. He reads his own press clippings and believes them. So they say Strait of Hormuz is open. Just go to vesselfinder.com, go to marinetraffic.com. Nothing's going through. Nothing right now.
Well,
The last ship that came out was called. Uh, let's see. The last ship out. Let me look here. Was called Sea Faith. Uh, it's a chemical oil products tanker, and it's headed to Singapore. That's the last one I see on vesselfinder.com.
well, before he signed the last MOU, he declared to people who were against that well, our strategic reserve was down to nothing. The economy was on the precipice of what happened under Herbert Hoover, which is a depression, and I'm not going to allow that. So, I mean, where has all that gone?
Well, they'll put it on the back burner, but that's going to come. That's from now going forward through the rest of July into August. Uh, this the economic slowdown is going to accelerate, and the financial pressure on the U.S. is going to increase.
Now, in the midst of all this, we should offer some hope to our audiences, and that is that Pakistani leadership, Qatari leadership, Turkish leadership believes that Iran would be prepared to accept the United States back to the negotiating table as soon as perhaps this weekend, coming weekend.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think that's ridiculous. Iran Iran's not going to accept the United States back. The United States is going to have to come back hat in hand, lift the blockade, lift the sanctions, unfreeze the assets up front. Iran's not going to take any more promises that this will be negotiated. Up front, unfreeze the assets now, not in the future. They're not going to accept any more promises from the United States. The
agreed, Larry. I should have phrased that better. Uh, with all these preconditions being met, and Trump would recognize the stupidity, the absolute utter stupidity of what he has done, because of the pressures that will mount on him. Uh, you know, uh, within the next several days. Optimistically by the weekend, and maybe not optimistically, but as soon as next week,
Yeah.
with all those preconditions being met. This is what I have learned directly from people in the negotiating room, that they are so confident that the pressure will be of such intensity because his stupidity and lies would become so evident that this is what is going to be the situation. So my question to you was, what do you think about that?
Yeah. I think they're overly optimistic. Trump Trump is not going to act until his hair is on fire, and it's going to be too late to put it out with a fire extinguisher. This is, I think, the sort of the last exit was this morning. Now we'll see if, with all of Trump's tough talk, say that fast 3 times, if the United States foregoes further attacks on Iranian targets tonight, that then tells me that the United States, despite its threats, closing the strait, reimposing the block. Oh, they didn't close the strait. The strait's open. I forgot. Trump said it's open. But the reimposing the blockade, that if there are no further military actions against Iran tonight, that'll tell me that the United States has blinked again and is backing off. But that's not a guarantee that it'll last for a day or two. Iran is not going to deviate from its course. It will remain amenable to reopening talks, but it's going to be under different conditions this next round. They're not going to go in with there are conditions that the United States is going to have to meet up front, not
Agreed.
with some promise down the line, up front. And it's going to start with the unfreezing of assets. There's going to have to be a financial
Absolutely
deposit into Iranian accounts, or Iran will say, screw it, we're not showing up.
I second that, Larry. I second that from information that I believe is credible. That this is going to be the conditions that would be communicated from what I understand by Erdogan, because this war was started, on Turkish soil, with Erdogan on his side. People believe that Erdogan would have a little bit higher authority when he speaks with Trump, saying everybody has spoken. This is what they want, and if you do not wish to be, your fire to be a fire to be lit, under you, this is what you're going to have to do.
Yeah. Well, let me just, I've learned a word in Farsi, and I think it may be connected to Urdu. Intigam.
Yes. Intikham.
Intikham.
Yes.
Well, I think with, so intikham is the Farsi word for revenge.
Yes.
And that was the phrase being chanted in the streets of Qom, of Tehran, of Mashhad. Intikham.
Yes.
Intikham.
Yes.
And so there's no conciliation on that. They want the murder of Ali Khamenei, the murder of the 168 children, the murder of General Soleimani. The United States is the assassin, not Iran. And Iran, therefore, is going to extract revenge. And that is going to be at the center of these negotiations.
And finally, Iran is in control of the escalation ladder. The United States is not.
Yes.
So, Larry, why don't you wrap it up so that we pick it up tomorrow with Pepe, and we come back on Wednesday, as we always do, with all three of us. And please remind people about our special paid subscription.
Yeah. So as this has been recorded Tuesday afternoon, roughly 2:45 p.m. East Coast time. It's 11:45 a.m. Monday afternoon on the West Coast. So within the next 14 hours, we'll know whether the United States is going to continue its campaign of violence against Iran, or if it has suffered enough damage that it's going to back off and seek to lick its wounds, despite all of its tough talk. The reality is Iran has inflicted significant damage on U.S. military facilities in Jordan, in Qatar, in Oman, in Bahrain, and Kuwait. And where the United States has the stomach to continue to, no matter what damage it thinks it's inflicting on Iran, the United States is suffering greater damage. So you can check us out at Transition Protocol on YouTube. There you will find the link to the Substack, where you can also read and watch what we're talking about. We've added other members to this channel that are offering their commentary already. Vijay Prasad, Alex Craner, and yes, so this is important voices that you normally won't hear out of the mainstream media in the West. It's important that you support us, that we can establish this as an alternative channel where you can get the information that you're not going to hear from the mainstream press. So we appreciate you taking the time to watch, to listen. Please hit that like and subscribe button. Pass it on to friends and relatives. You've had Dr. Zulfiqar Ali and myself, Larry Johnson. Tomorrow you have Pepe Escobar. So stay tuned. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.
Thank you very much.